There have been several immersive art exhibitions dedicated to the works of Claude Monet, one of the leading artists of the Impressionist movement. These exhibitions aim to showcase the artist's masterpieces and bring visitors into the world of Monet's art through various interactive and sensory experiences. On November 23, 2022, we attended an immersive Monet art exhibition in Atlanta. This exhibition used state-of-the-art technology, including projections and soundscapes, to immerse visitors in Monet's iconic landscapes and gardens. Visitors were able to walk through virtual recreations of Monet's gardens at Giverny and experience his paintings in a new, fully immersive way. These immersive exhibitions offer visitors a unique and memorable way to experience the works of Claude Monet and connect with his art in a new and exciting way. Claude Monet is one of the most celebrated artists of the 19th century, and his work continues to captivate audiences around the world. Born in 1840 in Paris, France, Monet was raised in a modest family and showed an early interest in art. Despite his parents' objections, he pursued his passion and eventually became one of the leaders of the Impressionist movement. Monet's early years were marked by poverty and instability. He studied at the Académie Suisse in Paris, where he met fellow artists Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Alfred Sisley, and Frédéric Bazille. Together, they would go on to shape the Impressionist movement and change the course of art history. Monet's work is characterized by his interest in capturing the changing moods and seasons of the landscape. He was particularly fascinated by the effects of light and color in nature, and sought to capture these fleeting moments in his paintings. Monet was also a master of capturing the fleeting moment. His works often feature clouds passing overhead, water rippling in the wind, and flowers swaying in the breeze. One of Monet's most famous series of paintings is the water lilies, which he created in the last 30 years of his life. These works are a testament to Monet's love of nature and his ability to convey the beauty and majesty of the natural world. This series is considered some of his most important work and is widely regarded as one of the masterpieces of the Impressionist movement. Monet's life was not without its challenges. He suffered from cataracts in his later years, which eventually forced him to stop painting. However, his work continued to inspire artists and captivate audiences. Today, Monet's paintings are displayed in some of the world's most prestigious museums, including the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and the National Gallery in London. Claude Monet's life and work are a testament to the power of art and the beauty of nature. His innovative techniques and passion for capturing the effects of light and color have inspired generations of artists and continue to captivate audiences around the world. Monet's paintings are a reminder of the importance of beauty in our lives and the transformative power of art. Claude Monet was born on November 14, 1840 on the 5th floor of 45 Rue Lafitte, in the 9th arrondissement of Paris. He was the second son of Claude Adolphe and Louise Justine Aubry Monet, both of them second-generation Parisians. On May 20, 1841, he was baptized into the local church parish, Notre-Dame de Lorette, as Oscar Claude. In 1845, his family moved to Le Havre in Normandy. His father wanted him to go into the family grocery store business, but Claude Monet wanted to become an artist. His mother was a singer. On the 1st of April 1851, Monet entered the Le Havre Secondary School of the Arts. He first became known locally for his charcoal caricatures, which he would sell for 10 to 20 francs. Monet also undertook his first drawing lessons from Jacques-François Ochid, a former student of Jacques-Louis David. On the beaches of Normandy in about 1856 to 1857, he met fellow artist Eugene Boudin, who became his mentor and taught him to use oil paints. Boudin taught Monet en plein air, outdoor, techniques for painting. On January 28, 1857, his mother died. He was 16 years old when he left school and went to live with his widowed childless aunt, Marie-Jeanne Lecaudre. When Monet traveled to Paris to visit the Louvre, he witnessed painters copying from the old masters. Monet, having brought his paints and other tools with him, would instead go and sit by a window and paint what he saw. Monet was in Paris for several years and met several painters who would become friends and fellow impressionists. One of those friends was Claude Monet. In June 1861, Monet joined the 1st Regiment of African Light Cavalry in Algeria for 2 years of a 7-year commitment, but upon his contracting typhoid, his aunt Marie-Jeanne Lecaudre intervened to get him out of the army if he agreed to complete an art course at a university. It is possible that the Dutch painter Johann Barthold Jonckent, whom Monet knew, may have prompted his aunt on this matter. Disillusioned with the traditional art taught at universities, in 1862 Monet became a student of Charles Gleyre in Paris, where he met Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Frédéric Bazille, and Alfred Sisley. Together they shared new approaches to art, painting the effects of light and plein air with broken color and rapid brushstrokes, in what later came to be known as Impressionism. Monet's Camille, or the Woman in the Green Dress, La Femme à la Robe Verte, painted in 1866, brought him recognition, and was one of many works featuring his future wife, Camille Dancieux. She was the model for the figures in The Woman in the Garden of the following year, as well as for On the Bank of the Seine, Benacourt, 1868, pictured here. Shortly thereafter, Dancieux became pregnant and gave birth to their first child, Jean. In 1868, due to financial reasons, Monet attempted suicide by throwing himself into the Seine. After the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War, July 19, 1870, Monet took refuge in England in September 1870. While there, he studied the works of John Constable and Joseph Mallard William Turner, both of whose landscapes would serve to inspire Monet's innovations in the study of color. In the spring of 1871, Monet's works were refused authorization to be included in the Royal Academy exhibition. In May 1871, he left London to live in Zaandam, where he made 25 paintings, and the police suspected him of revolutionary activities. He also paid a first visit to nearby Amsterdam. In October or November 1871, he returned to France. Monet lived from December 1871 to 1878 at Argenteuil, a village on the Seine near Paris, and here he painted some of his best-known works. In 1874, he briefly returned to Holland. In 1872 or 1873, he painted Impression, Sunrise, Impression, Soleil Levant, depicting a Le Havre landscape. It hung in the first Impressionist exhibition in 1874 and is now displayed in the Musée Marmottan Monet, Paris. From the painting's title, art critic Louis Leroy coined the term Impressionism, which he intended as disparagement but which the Impressionists appropriated for themselves. Monet and Camille Dancieux had married just before the war, June 28, 1870, and, after their excursion to London and Zaandam, they had moved into a house in Argenteuil near the Seine River in December 1871. She became ill in 1876. They had a second son, Michel, on March 17, 1878. Jean was born in 1867. This second child weakened her already fading health. In that same year, he moved to the village of Vethuel. At the age of 32, Madame Monet died on September 5, 1879 of tuberculosis. Monet painted her on her deathbed. After several difficult months following the death of Camille on September 5, 1879, a grief-stricken Monet, resolving never to be mired in poverty again, began in earnest to create some of his best paintings of the 19th century. During the early 1880s, Monet painted several groups of landscapes and seascapes in what he considered to be campaigns to document the French countryside. His extensive campaigns evolved into his series paintings. In 1878, the Monets temporarily moved into the home of Ernest Hochschild, 1837 to 1891, a wealthy department store owner and patron of the arts. Both families then shared a house in Bethuel during the summer. After her husband, Ernest Hochschild, became bankrupt and left in 1878 for Belgium in September 1879, and while Monet continued to live in the house in Bethuel, Alice Hochschild helped Monet to raise his two sons, Jean and Michel, by taking them to Paris to live alongside her own 6 children. They were Blanche, Germaine, Suzanne, Martha, Jean-Pierre, and Jacques. In the spring of 1880, Alice Hochschild and all the children left Paris and rejoined Monet, still living in the house in Bethuel. In 1881, all of them moved to Poissy, which Monet hated. From the doorway of the little train between Vernon and Gascony, he discovered Giverny. In April 1883, they moved to Vernon, then to a house in Giverny, Eure, in Upper Normandy, where he planted a large garden where he painted for much of the rest of his life. Following the death of her estranged husband, Alice Hochschild married Claude Monet in 1892. At the beginning of May 1883, Monet and his large family rented a house and 2 acres from a local landowner. By November 1890, Monet was prosperous enough to buy the house, the surrounding buildings, and the land for his gardens. Within a few years, by 1899, Monet built a greenhouse and a second studio, a spacious building, well lit with skylights. Beginning in the 1880s and 1890s, through the end of his life in 1926, Monet worked on series paintings, in which his subject was depicted in varying light and weather conditions. His first series exhibited as such was of haystacks, painted from different points of view and at different times of the day. 15 of the paintings were exhibited at the Galerie Durand Ruel in 1891. He later produced several series of paintings including Rouen Cathedral, Poplars, the Houses of Parliament, Mornings on the Seine, and the water lilies that were painted on his property at Giverny. Monet was exceptionally fond of painting controlled nature, his own gardens in Giverny, with its water lilies, pond, and bridge. He also painted up and down the banks of the Seine. Between 1883 and 1908, Monet traveled to the Mediterranean, where he painted landmarks, landscapes, and seascapes, such as Bordighera. He painted an important series of paintings in Venice, Italy, and in London he painted 2 important series, Views of Parliament and Views of Charing Cross Bridge. His second wife Alice died in 1911, and his oldest son Jean, who had married Alice's daughter Blanche, Monet's particular favorite, died in 1914. After his wife died, Blanche looked after and cared for him. It was during this time that Monet began to develop the first signs of cataracts. During World War I, in which his younger son Michel served and his friend and admirer Clemenceau led the French nation, Monet painted a series of weeping willow trees as homage to the French fallen soldiers. Cataracts formed on Monet's eyes, for which he underwent 2 operations in 1923. The paintings done while the cataracts affected his vision have a general reddish tone, which is characteristic of the vision of cataract victims. It may also be that after surgery he was able to see certain ultraviolet wavelengths of light that are normally excluded by the lens of the eye. This may have had an effect on the colors he perceived. After his operations he even repainted some of these paintings, with bluer water lilies than before the operation. Monet died of lung cancer on December 5, 1926 at the age of 86 and is buried in the Giverny Church Cemetery. Monet had insisted that the occasion be simple, thus about 50 people attended the ceremony. His famous home and garden with its water lily pond were bequeathed by his heirs to the French Academy of Fine Arts, part of the Institut de France, in 1966. Through the Fondation Claude Monet, the home and gardens were opened for visit in 1980, following refurbishment. In addition to souvenirs of Monet and other objects of his life, the home contains his collection of Japanese woodcut prints. The home is one of the 2 main attractions of Giverny, which hosts tourists from all over the world.